All right, hello and welcome to our panel on thriving as women in STEM. My name is Lacivita. I'm Vice President of Women Innovators, a nonprofit based in Boise with the mission to make Idaho the place for women and girl innovators to succeed. When I'm not doing that, I'm a group product manager for Intuit. I am really excited today to host a panel of three amazing women who all have very different careers and came to STEM in very different ways, but who all share a passion for supporting fellow career women in STEM and passing on what they've learned. I'm inviting today's panelists to share how they got here, how they've navigated some of the better known challenges for women working in STEM, and what allies can do to help women in STEM thrive. A quick side note, while we couldn't do this panel live, there is a live chat and some of us are hanging out with you there today. So feel free to throw responses and questions in and we will reply if we can. Also, we are definitely not the only voices of experience in the room, and I encourage everyone who has something to share to pitch in. So with that, I'm going to start by introducing our panelists, and then we'll jump in. So Dr. Angela Hemingway is a K-12 education advisor for T-Mobile. Her primary focus is to train, coach, and support sales teams to succeed in the K-12 education market. She came to STEM through her love of science and math. She also loves to backpack throughout the Pacific Northwest and loves getting completely disconnected from the real world while she does that. Priya Patel is a software engineer at Intuit. She is part of the TurboTax team and focuses on globalization and support. She knew she wanted to be in tech after writing her first program and seeing the results. And for fun outside of work, she loves to dance. And finally, Jenny Ryan is product strategy and design lead at software company Vynyl. Her job entails helping clients understand where business opportunities lie and what products to build to most effectively address them. She came to STEM through her love of art. And when she's not working, she's mostly been doing round-the-clock duck, duck, goose with her 3-year-old daughter. So thank you all for joining us today. And I'd like to start with a round-the-table question. I want to hear why it's important for you to talk about women in STEM. And Angela, I'm going to start with you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And hello to our audience joining us virtually. It's just so wonderful that you've taken time to join us today. And for me, when we think about women in STEM and this, topic in particular, women now make up 60% of the students that are going on into higher education, but they continue to only make up 25% of the STEM workforce. We're seeing more individuals retiring. Our economy, especially our tech and STEM economy, continues to grow. So we need to ensure we have equity and access for all individuals interested in STEM and potentially a STEM career, regardless of race, gender, socioeconomic status, and so on. We need innovators, entrepreneurs, trailblazers to really move this economy forward and really conquer this new innovative landscape that we're entering. So this is a topic really near and dear to my heart. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you here, and I think we'll talk a little bit later about what you're seeing in your world that can help us get there. I'm also going to look to Jenny and ask the same thing. Why is it important for you to talk about women in STEM? What's passionate there?
Yeah, thanks, Eve. I mean, I love this conversation. I think as women in STEM, sharing our experiences and our stories just really gives permission to other women and young girls to pursue their passion in this space. And I think this is a space where you belong and where your unique perspectives and ideas are needed, and you deserve to be here. And I hope that this conversation, helps women understand that and helps them pursue their passion in this space.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a certain, we can be very stoic sometimes about being the only voice in the room and not wanting to talk about that, but it is really important to talk about. And I'm super excited you're here to do that. And Priya, how about you?
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's so exciting to be here. The reason I want to talk here is because I started my career back in India and have overcome some challenges, seen ups and downs in industry, and so is my career. And I've had fun thriving through it, and I've learned so much from the community. I got so much support from the community, and I think it's my time to give back, to share some of my experiences, which might help people in my domain or anyone who's in somewhere there in that situation. I'll just be happy if not everyone, if one of them is motivated today from today's talk.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. And I want to build on that a little bit in terms of like the giving back and the community and the people who help along the way to do that. And, you all shared with me some of your reasons for choosing a career in STEM. And I want to explore that a little bit more. And I also want to hear, what support did you have from allies along the way? I think I get that question a lot, from folks. What can I do to help? What works? What's important? And so I want to talk about that a little bit. And Priya, I'm going to come back to you on this one. You talked about the first time you wrote a program and seeing the results and what that did for you. So tell us a little bit what that was like and how that set you on this path.
Sure. So this was like back when I just gave my 10th grade exam, and I was, it was, those times when you have those huge old monitors and those big CPU monitors that you get. And it was very new to get a computer in your house. But the computer which I was working on was my neighbor's. So what I did was I just wrote a small C++ program, which just sends you a motivation message every 60 minutes. I literally had a timer for 60 minutes and then sends a message to you. And then I remember the feeling I had when the first message, like when it ran and it showed me a first message, like, hey, you can do this. That was like a very easy message I put. And that's something gave me a feeling like, no, this is where I really enjoyed doing this whole process. I really enjoy the result, and I want to learn more. I want to go into it. I want to explore more things. There's a lot new opportunities, and that made me choose this. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Can you tell us what the motivational message said?
I want to
hear that.
You can do this. Like literally, you can do this
awesome.
In quotes.
That's fantastic. Yeah. You were kind of your own ally in
I would say my neighbor was thank you for getting the computer, I would say.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. How did that come about?
So, that was like, 2004 or something, where, you had those white color monitors with like huge back and then a CPU, which makes a lot of noise with a fan going on and a small keyboard. And then the first thing, and at that time it's like the Windows, I think it was Windows 98 or something. Yeah, I don't even remember, but yeah, and that's where I wrote like a first C++ program there.
Sweet.
Yeah,
that is awesome. I love that. Angela, you mentioned a love of microscopes and telescopes, and you also talked a bit about the support of your dad and a couple of really influential and amazing teachers. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I was one of those curious kids from birth, which often caused my parents a lot of stress. But, my dad really embraced it and took me out, and we essentially had a makerspace in the garage where we could tinker and build and come up with these absolutely crazy ideas. And so he was just always encouraging me to, be creative and to think forward and to find a problem and to see if I could find a solution for it. So as early as first grade, my first grade teacher, Mrs. Whitman, we had those little books. Do you guys remember making those little books about what you want to be when you grow up? And so mine, I still have it, is a little astronaut. And so even from my earliest days, I, was just having visions of, something bigger, something more. And for me, math and science just really clicked. And then I think thankfully, because of, my dad, Mrs. Whitman, Mr. Newton, and then as I got into high school, Mr. Furman in his calculus class, he said, you're really good at this. You should think about, how is math and science going to layer into a future career, and found some phenomenal teachers, Professor Santani, that really encouraged microbiology for me. So I like to look far and I like to look at little things, and ended up getting my master's in microbiology. And that was just such a passion for me to be able to really work in healthcare in the nursing realm and teaching future nurses and doctors how to use aseptic technique and how to work with patients and clients around disease and infection prevention. And so, with that, they just, my champions and mentors, they saw potential in me I didn't see in myself. And it was through their encouragement that really just keep going. You can do this. You're really good at this. You could be successful. You could have a career. And so again, so thankful for all those men and women that have helped me get where I am today.
That's awesome. So when you heard that prompt, like, you're good at this, have you considered a career in this? Was that was that a first for you? Was that, the first time you kind of put together there's actually a way that I can turn this into something more than just a fun thing and that I enjoy? How did that connect the dots for you?
Well, I think, when I was with Professor Santani at Boise State in microbiology, he actually needed a teaching assistant. And I loved microbiology. I was doing phenomenal. And he goes, I need a teaching assistant in the fall semester. And I went, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to teach, right? I'd been a mentor. So I'd been a peer tutor in the class, helping support other students, or even some general biology students. But he really is the first one that pushed me and said, you can do this. You've got the content down. I just need you to be able to teach this course for me. I lost my teaching assistant. And so again, it was through that, I would call it positive pressure, that really helped me step into that realm. And then I embraced teaching, and I've been in education ever since.
Wow, positive pressure. I like it. You can do more than this, and you should. And that's great. Jenny, you came to STEM from a love of art, which really caught my attention because I have a personal conviction that all passions lead to STEM. Can you tell us how you got from art to tech, which I'm not sure is an obvious connection for everyone? And how did folks help you out on the way? Did you have any ally help?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to grow up in a very creative house. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and everything was an art project. I mean, we're talking homemade coloring books, homemade Halloween costumes, decorating cookies. There was always a creative outlet, and I think I just always carried that with me. That was really freeing for me and really something that I was drawn to. And so high school, I think I started to think a little more practically about what a career with art might be. I certainly was not good enough to be an artist by any means, but I loved that creative environment that art provides. And I saw an advertisement in my high school hallway for a graphic design class. And that was sort of my first introduction to maybe like digital art, you could say. And I just loved it. I loved creating with the computer. That's where I first started learning about Photoshop and Illustrator. And that ultimately led me to pursue a degree in graphic design. And at the time, my understanding of graphic design was creating logos and business cards and websites. So still pretty artsy in a way. But after I graduated, I bounced around to a few different kinds of design jobs. So I was an in-house designer, and then I worked for an agency. And then I was introduced to the world of product design. And it kind of blew my mind because it was this perfect mix to me of like systematic thinking, which is a little bit more mathematic and critical thinking to solve business problems and create actual products and interfaces, but also this creative element that kind of came from art. So I would say, that introduction to art and wanting to pursue a creative career, but also wanting something that involved a little bit more critical thinking, was just like the perfect marriage for me when I was introduced to product design, and I've been here ever since.
That's awesome. And I love everybody here has talked about, they had something that they fell in love with, at a fairly young age, but then there were also folks who helped them kind of connect that to here's what this could mean in the real world, beyond this is what we do in school. And I think that's so important. I want to talk for a minute about self-doubt, and those moments of imposter syndrome that we sometimes have. You've all spent time developing your careers, and that can include ups and downs. What was a time that you had a moment of serious self-doubt in your career, and how did you get past that? And Jenny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I love this question. I think this is super important to talk about, just to feel that you're not alone in these situations. I've been in this industry for 10 years and I still have these moments of self-doubt. And I think for me, they mostly come when I'm doing something out of my comfort zone or trying something new for the first time. But I always try to remind myself, like, no one starts as an expert. You have to start somewhere. And I really think the doing of something requires a lot of courage. And I think it's really brave to do things that you're not ready for or that you feel unprepared for. But I also think that's where you build the most confidence and you really begin to find your voice and who you are and your style and kind of your lane in the STEM industry. And so I try to just keep that in mind. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You're not going to be an expert from the get-go, but it's really in the doing of things that value lies.
Yeah. Is there a time, like, is there a particular moment for you that just epitomizes that, where you found yourself in a position of, wow, I'm not the expert here, and I feel like I should be, but in fact that was your opportunity to really grow and change and do more?
Yeah, all the time. This happens to me quite a bit. My title is product strategy and design lead, and I come from a design background. So stepping into the world of product strategy, it's a lot more client facing and it's a lot more collaborative and interactive with clients. And so when I first took that leap, I was like, how do I get clients to trust me? How do I help them understand we're on the same team? It was a lot of responsibility that I had never done personally before. I had watched great mentors do it. I had been around it as sort of a second in the conversation. But yeah, taking the lead there was a big leap, and it was uncomfortable, but it truly did help me find confidence in my ability, right? Because you have to reach back into a place of comfort and knowing that you can do this, you are good enough to be here, to kind of push through that self-doubt and do the thing. Otherwise you're going to miss opportunities, and you're not going to grow as much as you could.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just a matter of leaning into that discomfort, and instead of trying to fix it, saying, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, and being okay with that. Yeah. Priya, how about you? Do you have any moments like that? What was your moment when you looked around and said, wow, I don't know if I should be doing this, but then moved past that?
Oh yeah, like being in the software industry, things change. It changes way, even every day. There are new products coming in, and you've not already worked on it, or even if, like, whenever you're planning to switch jobs and they're working on something else you are very interested in, but you do not have experience, going through it. I had one of the experience when you said that. There was a time where I was laid off from one of my companies, and there were like 2 months where I did not get any. I didn't have a job, and I was looking for one. And there was some time where I was like, do I have that? Do I have that enough knowledge or information for going to another company, learning everything, starting everything from scratch? It's a big jump for you. And I was self-doubting myself, I would agree for that. And the biggest thing helped me was I called up my ex-colleague who was still working in the company, and I just wanted to ask, like, just want to talk. It's like he was a good friend, and I just wanted to talk to him. And he said that you have been one of the best person I've worked with. You are very technically sound. Any company would be very happy to have you. You just have to push through your boundaries, maybe learn something new, maybe express more interest in a new technology and try to find something around it. And I'm pretty sure you'll be successful there. And those were like 4 or 5 sentences which he said. And since he worked with me like for almost 2 years, he already knew, like he knew the gist of how I work. And it gave me a lot of motivation. Like, no, if there is somebody who knows that I have that much power to push through, why am I not believing myself? And that is when I learned new things. I started understanding new languages. And I ended up a job in LA. So I worked in a networking department for developing software tools for them, because something which I learned in my 2 months of time period. So I think a good part is, if you ever have self-doubt or something like that, talk to someone. It's you will always have a good positive energy passed on around, and that will help you move on. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I love that. I think, it goes back to that needing to talk about these things and needing to express them. And I think a lot of times when we do have those moments of self-doubt, they're really stories that we're telling ourselves. They're not necessarily real. Every everybody that we're looking at looks so much more perfect than we think we are. But we're all extremely capable. And a lot of times it takes that voice of support saying, no, this is what I'm seeing in you, to break us past that story. And I love that thought, to just like in a moment of self-doubt, don't keep it in, reach out and talk to someone and help, have them help you bust through that.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Angela, how about you? Was there a moment when you were questioning, and how did you move past that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2015, that's when the legislation was passed to create the Idaho STEM Action Center. And I was lucky enough to be selected by Governor Otter to be the first director of the Idaho STEM Action Center. So I had a meeting with him. There were 4 pages of legislation. He slid across the table. He's like, Angela, can you start my STEM Action Center? I said, I don't know. Let's find out, right? So I show up to work the next day and I have the key, thankfully. I open my office door and there was a moment I'm standing there. There's a desk and a ratty old chair. I have my lunch on my shoulder and I am looking around going, I have no computer. I have no team. I have no website. I didn't even have a pen or a microwave for the day, right? So that moment of panic going, what did you do? You are standing here looking at a desk and a chair and you're supposed to create this brand new agency. So leaning against that door frame, I had to take a couple breaths and say, what do I have? So thinking through that, what can I control? What do I have? Who do I need to know? What do I need to find? Who do I need to talk to in order to get things moving forward? So rather than being paralyzed with fear, which I was for a moment, taking a few deep breaths and trying to kind of situate it in a more positive fashion, like what can I control to actually move this situation forward? But that was definitely my most panicked moment in my career, when I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to do it.
Yeah. What were you coming from when you took on that role? I'm just curious what kind of a shift that was.
I was coming out as the director of assessment and accountability at State Department of Education. So certainly a very solid job with an awesome team and, lots of components already in place. So then to shift over to something that didn't exist on pieces of paper and having to bring that into reality, again, to Jenny's point, loved the creativity of, bringing forth an entirely new agency, but the initial shock and challenge was overwhelming in the beginning.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a big shift. That's a big shock. And on that story of sort of like telling ourselves the stories and moving past them, and also, having that moment of, wow, this is not quite what I expected it to be, and moving past that. One of the things we talked about when we met for the first time was that trap of perfectionism, and wanting everything to be, feeling like if it's not just so, then there's something wrong. And there's some evidence that women feel more pressure to be perfect than men do, and that can hold us back sometimes from taking those risks and leaning into those moments. What do you do when you feel perfection knocking at the door and it's not time to listen to that?
So thank you for addressing this. This is definitely something, again, I saw over and over again as an educator, especially, with young women, and helping them move past this need to be perfect and this need to, I got to score 100% on this test or it's not good enough. And so I think addressing this is critically important. And it was something I certainly have struggled with, my life as well. So for me, I just even did this last night. So I'm glad I work from home now and not in an office, because I tend to talk to myself a lot. And so I've done the best I can, given the time I have. I've done the best I can, given the time I have. And then I hit send, or be it an email or a presentation. That is all I can ask of myself. And if I really have left it all on the table, I know it's not going to be perfect. I have to have the confidence that people will recognize she's done the best she can, given the time she has. She's worked hard, balanced a family, taking care of herself mentally and physically with a job, and this is what you're going to get. So for me, the mantra of I've done the best I can, given the time I have, is something I really have to live by every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it's so true. Yeah. How about anybody else has a similar, an approach to kind of getting yourselves past that moment when you're saying, oh, this is not good enough. It's not perfect enough. I can't possibly share this with the world. Jenny, is there something there is there an approach that you have there?
Yeah. I like to remind myself, everything looks perfect from far away. We never see, a lot of times we just see the end results of people's work after prep and research and everything. And so it's easy to think, oh, they're just seamless at it. This is such a perfect delivery of their responsibilities. But you don't see, maybe they were really anxious beforehand, or maybe they felt like, oh, this isn't perfect. So I just like to think everything looks perfect from far away. You're not in this alone. You're not the first person to be feeling this. And then similar to Angela, I think you have to care about your work and you have to feel good about it and be proud of it. And that can be enough. And that should be enough. I don't think you need to take on the responsibility of, will people think I'm smart enough? Will they think this is good enough? How will they react to this? Will they respect me? Like, I think if you believe in your work and you're proud of it, that should be enough.
Yeah. I love that. Looking for the validation from within, as opposed to leaning on the validation of the people around you, all of whom typically probably think you're doing just fine anyway. But it's not about them, right? It's about saying, am I satisfied with the work I've done? Do I feel proud of it? That's fantastic. Priya, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with both Jenny and Angela. They gave like some very good points. And if I talk about being in a software industry, I always think nothing is perfect. There is always a scope to improve, because if talking technically, if you write something today, after a few months, there is some new technology came in, which is going to replace that. So it's never like, oh, maybe I made a mistake, or maybe that was not good enough for me. But you did what you could. You did all your research. Looking at the problem, you've seen from all 360-degree angles what is the best solution, and that is what you gave. As Jenny said, believing in yourself is the most important key for like moving ahead and getting out of those perfectionist theme. Yeah,
I love that. Well, and one of the things that is true in, especially in software development, but I think in all STEM fields, is that experimentation is part of the name of the game. And we talk a lot about not getting it right on the first try, but testing something, trying something. And I just want to let's talk on that a little bit more. How do you kind of get yourself to the point where you're not just trying to get it right on the first try, but you're saying, this is the first step, and I'm going to learn from that and do a little bit more the next time, or do differently, and maybe you don't know what the result is going to be. Priya, as a software engineer, maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, all our solutions are always first brute force. Like, let's try to find a solution for it. Let's see how it works. And that is your first test. That is your first way to approach a thing, which is like an easier way, which is like, this is how I solve it. And then moving ahead, you try to optimize that solution, think, could this be better? Could this be much more easier, simpler for me and simpler for a client? Like, it takes less performance wise or bandwidth wise, but it's mostly a lot of your research and a lot of your understanding, and always asking help, getting a lot of resources, like asking your colleagues who have done this work, or asking out on online. You have like a lot of knowledge online. It's just pushing through, saying that, no, I know this is the best solution which I have, and I have my research on it, and this would be it could change after a few months. You never know. But like, if the technology is not yet out here, how would you be able to perfectionalize your solution if it's not there?
Yeah. And I think just that keeping that awareness of, hey, this could change in a couple of months. Hey, this could get better in a few months. I'm just going to try that first step now is so huge. We've got just a couple minutes left, and I just want to put out there, so one final thing. Some of the best parts of growing in our career is the inspiration we get from others along the way. And, we've talked a lot today about the inspiration that you had coming, is growing your careers in STEM. But I want to give you all the opportunity to pass on some of that inspiration as well as we close. What is a great piece of advice that you've received that you want to pass on, or just what's a great piece of advice that you have that you want people listening to this to walk away with? And Priya, I'll start with you again.
Yeah. So I would say believe in yourself and be brave. Things you do not know, but you should believe that I can do it. I can figure it out. That is like one of the biggest positive push you can give yourself. Like you can move ahead with that. I think we have a lot of power in ourselves than we think we do. And a lot of other people see those powers, but we kind of neglect them, which is the biggest thing. And I think if you just take onto that opportunity without worrying too much, overthinking too much, oh, maybe someone else is better for this one, maybe I can't do this, maybe I don't have time, just take that leap of faith, take that opportunity, and then I know you can figure this out. Quoting my first motivation sentence, you can do this. You can totally do this. Yeah.
Well, I love that framing also, like back to the idea of the self-doubt and the perfectionism. It's not that you already know how to do this, but you can figure this out,
Exactly.
having that. Yeah, that's great. Jenny, how about you? What would you like to pass on? What would you like people to take away from today?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I learned in my career, and one of the most helpful things early on, especially, was just to ask questions. I think asking a lot of questions is oftentimes seen as, maybe you don't know as much as you should, especially if they're sometimes obvious or simple questions. But I think it's so important to ask questions when you don't know something or you want to know something. And on top of that, I will add, I've been very fortunate to have a couple mentors who created a very safe space for me to ask questions. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that you can do as a mentor, is to create sort of this judgment-free zone for women to bring their concerns, bring their questions, things that they want to know. And so they have a safe space to ask. It's just such an undervalued and simple skill to develop, just to keep asking questions and keep learning and wanting to know more.
I love that. And thank you for sharing something actionable that allies and mentors can take away from this as well, because I think that's so important to hear. Angela, what are your final thoughts? What are your final words?
Well, I would just echo what Priya and Jenny said, be brave, push out the self-doubt, ask questions, find your allies. Certainly those are absolutely critical. For me, it was also finding the capacity to align my passion with my purpose. So my job doesn't feel like a job. I get up and I love what I do. And I don't want my cup half full or full. I want it runneth over, because we have the capacity right now in our careers to positively impact humankind, right? The work that we're doing can change the world, and ensuring that more women in particular move into these careers is just so incredibly critical. The work we're doing right now, changing the world, the economy continues to advance. We are living here on the cutting edge of this 21st century, not only with the technical skills that we have, but thinking through all of the amazing 21st century skills that we have as women, right? The ability to communicate, to collaborate, to Jenny's point, to think creatively, to problem solve. These are skills that women bring in abundance. Teamwork, asking questions. I just think it's such a huge opportunity for women of all ages to consider a STEM career. There are jobs aplenty, anything from the computer science side of the house to the healthcare side of the house, just encouraging women to look at that job, find your passion, follow that line. It will become your purpose. And then a job doesn't feel like a job. It's just who you are.
Yeah, that is a wonderful call to action. And thank you for that. And I think it's so important to emphasize all of our passions lead to STEM. STEM is the way we solve problems for the world. And yeah, it's so important. That's all we have time for today. I really would love to keep talking. You all have such amazing things to share. But I thank you for your time, and I hope we can talk again in the future. And I hope that those listening have taken away some inspiration for their careers or to support others in their career journey. And I thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful time at Boise Entrepreneur Week.